Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show you a script I've been working on for the visual sequence editor. I've used the VSE on a number of occasions for just film editing, but most of the time I'm really just trying to use it to align my clips, and most of the work that I spend is actually in the compositing side of things. And that means that it can be quite tough to get things done in a quick fashion, because I inevitably have to re-render out all of my sequences to be used inside the VSE after they've been composited individually. So that means I've got a number of steps back and forth between the compositor and the sequencer. I don't actually need to use the sequencer to render anything. I just need it to align my clips and use the time information correctly. So this is one aspect of using the sequencer and the compositor, which really is incompatible with a lot of the reasoning behind using the compositor, which is to use it as a final composite for colour correction of your entire footage. So if you're going straight to that final stage, then the VSE can actually get in the way. So what I decided to do was create some sort of parser that would read a VSE sequence, and it would then create some nodes that respect the time information that you develop inside of the VSE and use that to render in the compositor. So without any further ado, let's quickly add ourselves some strips. So I have a folder VSE demo, I have 2 strips, and I'm going to rename this one just so we can tell what's going on. So this one is, we're going to call this life ring. And then halfway through we'll add ourselves another piece of footage which is called fence. And delete the sound. You can use the sounds, and if we do use this add-on, you would render out the sound using the audio rendering, because the VSE isn't actually going to evaluate anything. So let's just increase the DPI so we can see what's going on. And you want to render using the audio when you do come to render the sound. So here are my 2 clips. I'm going to add a transition between the 2. It's going to be a cross transition, and I'm going to shorten this fence one so that it doesn't cover the entirety of the footage. In fact, no, I won't. I'm going to leave it for now. And then lastly, we're going to add ourselves an image sequence, open up this image sequence, and this is going to underlay under this, and we're going to shorten it and make it cross between the 2. So if we now demonstrate what this looks like, let's open up this visual window. I want an add-on that will make it float. And you can see that we basically scrub through this footage, keep going and just skip forward, and then we fade into this footage here, and then we cut straight into the footage, or carry on, sorry, and then we cross into the next footage. So we have 2 fades, and we go from the life ring to the fence to the rain. Okay, so that's done. Now, to create a node version representation of this, all I need to do is run this node script that I have already enabled and change the frame. And it will produce all the nodes over here. And you'll see that they're all centered at the moment. That's just a byproduct of how it's designed. So let's quickly arrange this as it looks in the VSE to make things easier to work with later on. We have our fence footage in the middle, life ring down here, this image sequence here, this cross sequence is roughly above that, and we'll lift this up here, and then this cross sequence is also above the fence. So this is just to help us develop. Now you'll see we have lots of different nodes here, so we're going to quickly go through what each of them does. We have 2 movie nodes. These are designed to output movie file contents. And if we look inside the node group, and we're going to push, pull, you used to be able to do that. You can do that, I think it's just being a bit problematic. Okay, so you'll see we have a movie clip here, and it's configured to use a certain movie file. It's red. And we also have an image sequence here, which is the same, except now we're using an image here, and it's got all the parameters there. So the important thing to note now is that there's also these cross strips. These are orange, and these are effect strips. And essentially, effect strips are very simple. They have all the same parameters as other nodes, but they also have this operation in the middle. And this takes a factor input. And at the moment, this is simply just an alpha over operation. In fact, I didn't even need to have this group cross operation. I could just use the alpha over node. But I've decided to make it easy for myself and just create an operation container so we can see what's going on. Anyway, this is the same in both of these cross nodes, and you'll notice that we don't have any. We're not really sure which one we should connect to the viewer. So this is the first little dilemma you will have. The way in which you want to render this is in terms of the channel priority. So the channel numbers are on the left in the VSE. As you'll notice that the higher the channel, the more priority it takes. So if you have this sequence here, will take priority over, or precedence over this sequence, this purple sequence here. So if there is footage to be played from the blue sequence, we will play it over the purple one until it stops. So we need to emulate that in the nodes, and the way we do that is we simply take the highest precedence, or the highest priority node, which is in this case is these cross nodes, and we want to render one of those to the viewer. So we could take, for example, this cross here, and see that during this effect we fade into the second clip, which is the image sequence. And I know it's not scaled correctly, but that's just a way in which I've implemented it, and that's easy to change. You'll notice that if we leave the borders of this cross effect, that we don't see anything. That's because it's designed so that it will cut off and display nothing when there is nothing going into the when it's outside of the frame range that the effect is applied for. So in order to allow us to see that information, we use these layer in and layer out sockets, and in here we put in any of the nodes, we put in the image data that we want to play before the effect, which is layer in, or after, which is layer out. If I turn off alpha, and hopefully I can affect this with layer in, maybe. I don't know if I actually can do this, but we'll see. Maybe not. Okay, I can't actually demonstrate it now, but this is how the priority system works. This is how layers are stacked, and you notice every node has this layer in and layer out, and some of these parameters. So you might be asking, well, how do I then show both of these effects and also incorporate all the footage on either side of the effects? Because just because the effects are the highest priority, they also don't cover the entirety of the footage, and we want to include all of the footage in the render. The way we do this is we choose one of these cross nodes. It doesn't matter which. It just matters which node we choose afterwards. So we're going to choose cross 01 to be our rendering node. So when it's not playing beforehand, we want to play the next highest priority operator, which is cross. So we're going to put that into layer in. And you'll notice now that we can see in our first effect, which is this node, and then our second cross effect we can also see being rendered here. But between those we don't see anything. So we're only seeing these pink strips rendering. So we now need to incorporate the other footage. When this cross effect is finished, we will just see the purple image strip. So that image needs to go into layer out. And now you'll notice that after the cross effect is finished, we can still see this faded, this image sequence. Now beforehand, we're currently playing the cross effect. So anything that after the first cross effect is finished is supposed to be sent to this node. But you'll notice that we haven't actually got anything going into the layer out of this first cross effect on the left. So to do that, when this effect is finished, we're still playing the fence, so we're going to put the fence into the layer out. And now you'll notice that we can see the layer out between these two cross effects here. And now what we need to do is so that when we're not playing the cross effect at the start, we want to put the life ring footage in. So we're going to put that into layer in. And now it looks exactly as we expect. We can transition between the clips. And then finally we have our last image sequence. So that's how we simply create a node group from our VSE footage. And in the next video I'll demonstrate how you do the same without having transitions and just using image nodes and movie nodes. Thank you for watching.